Hi, I'm Judy Morano, and welcome to the show. Today I'm joined by Needles, who's an artist, a local artist, and will be showing at the studio around the corner in the month of October. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So before we even talk about your art, I want to just talk about you. You're in Brewster at the...
At 8 Golden Falcons, correct.
Right.
I've known Eric Schuda for probably 15 or more years. And we decided to work together again after a while.
But your training is in art.
Yeah, I have a degree in communication design from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, which is just a fancy way of saying illustration. But even before then, I had been always doing art my whole life.
Mm-hmm. And so what have you worked on? What have you done before? I know now you're doing tattoo and art.
Yes.
But before that, what were you working on mostly? Were you doing commercial stuff? Were you doing...
While I was in school, I was actually getting jobs from my teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be print media, poster work, T-shirts, I had been going to school teaching myself how to tattoo as well as doing work for hire.
Okay.
So I've constantly been doing art in some way or another in order to make a living.
Okay. And you've done for yourself? I mean, have you worked for other people? Have you...
Most of it is for others. You know, as an artist for hire, I've done everything. I worked for the New York Times. Worked for various magazines. One of the larger jobs I had in school was to paint the backgrounds for the toy fair. So that was a very fun job for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was quite fun. But yeah, you know, back then when I was in school, you know, it was anything to pay the rent. You know, nowadays, after I, you know, taught myself to get into the tattoo world, it just, you know, made it a lot easier to make a living.
So that's where you're getting paid from, so you have a little more free time to do the things that you want to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and always the passion has been, you know, creating art.
I was going to say, is it similar? I mean, the tattooing versus the painting, is there a similar vein there?
I believe that they're similar, but they're also very different because the tattooing, it's more working for someone specifically, whereas painting, I can paint for myself and do what I choose and what I want. And also, you have unlimited time to do those pieces of art, whereas the tattoo art is, you know, time allotted. You only have so much.
And now, do people normally come to you and say, I want this, or they say, be creative? How much of be creative do you get?
I believe I get too much be creative because yeah, a lot of people just say, do what you want, and then I tell them what I want, and then they're like, no, we can't do that.
No.
So it's a give and take. You know, it's a little much more like an illustration job because you're taking someone's idea
and turning it into something beautiful.
You're communicating it visually through image, which is exactly what I was trained for.
So look at that, you're using what you went to school for.
It's rare, but it does happen.
Not probably how you thought you'd be using it.
No, it was definitely something that I stepped in accidentally. It was never something I set out to do. I just knew that I would be able to support myself through art.
So you decided to do the tattooing as a way to support yourself through art?
Yeah, correct.
And you taught yourself?
Yes, back when I was learning, it was incredibly difficult to learn from established artists already.
Okay.
It was a very lengthy and demeaning part of the job to try to learn. And
people would apprentice for a long time before you would,
Yeah, you know, and then in New York at that time, it was very difficult. So I bypassed that and just did it on my own.
And how did you learn? I mean, don't you have to do it on people to learn?
Sure, you do. But just like anything, the more you do, the better you get.
Yeah.
You know,
and you just have to have a lot of willing guinea pigs.
Yeah, that helps. It definitely helps. It definitely helps.
So when you're not tattooing, which is, again, you do that some days, you spend time doing art, and I think your art is amazing. I just
Oh,
want to
thank you
start by
very
saying
much.
that. I think you're super creative, and
Thank you.
so when I look at a piece, we'll start with this piece actually. What comes first? Like when you look at a blank canvas, where do you start?
With this series that I've been working on, I've been calling it organized chaos because
Story of my life.
Yeah, most people, correct?
Uh-huh.
I just start with basically making a mess, and I see something in it, and
So you don't start with an idea in mind. You don't-
sometimes it depends on the piece. Sometimes it's from reference, sometimes it's not. It's the eclectic brain of an artist. It's never
Right,
it's
right.
never
It's not really
on
cut,
time,
and it's not really
never
cut dry.
convenient.
It's right, right.
It is when it is.
So this piece here, first of all, I love the colors of it. I love,
Thank you.
inspiration, thoughts.
That actually, I had taken a photo reference and just elaborated from there. And I also hadn't done a self-portrait in probably 25 years. So I thought it was about time.
Okay.
And it actually was one of the quickest of the pieces for the show that I
Really?
did. Yeah. I think it's because, you know yourself, so.
Or you think you know yourself, which is
Yeah.
to me this really it captures you so well that that's hard to do because what you see of you and what other people see of you is so different. And I'm interested in why this.
That's a funny story because all it is the bottom of my cell phone taking a picture.
Is it really?
Yes, yes. But when that image was captured, it was so washed out and overblown that you couldn't tell what it was. And I like that.
I wouldn't
in a
have thought
lot
cell
of
phone
my-
there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I
have
like that in a lot of the pieces that I've done recently. There's things that people are like, "How did you get that?" And I'm like, it was there, and I made it into that.
Okay.
You know, there's not not necessarily a specific, like I need to make this drip this way. It just some things just happen.
It just happens.
And sometimes I just go with it. Each
Wow.
one creates their own environment.
Well, I know I've spoken to a lot of artists who say it speaks to them. You know,
Yeah.
you just it tells you what to do.
Correct. And lately, my previous works have been very, very photorealistic. So for me, I'm trying to depart from that and be a lot looser in my work.
Okay.
And less finite
So is that the
detail.
theme you're going with for this whole
Correct.
organized chaos
Correct.
thing?
Yes. Just trying to loosen up in my own work because even in the tattooing, it's a lot of very, very finite points and very,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So this I needed to basically relax a little while I paint. And
And
not
does it feel
be-
different?
It does. It feels very different because I can feel when it's done.
Okay. And that's for a lot of artists a hard
It's
call.
very difficult.
Yeah.
Like in my previous work, it was constant work a little, let it dry, work a little, let it dry. And it kept building and building, and that could take months sometimes
Right.
to do one painting,
Right.
you know? Whereas now, it's a little more, creative process, you know? Each one tells me when they are done. And I'm trying to listen to that inner voice rather than
Then the ego
Quiet
that
it.
comes in and the other parts that come in, and
Yes.
your monkey brain goes, but it could be better, or I could do
I
more,
know.
and
I could render this, these glasses till they look like they were a photograph.
Right, right.
But for me, in this series, I really tried to pull back from that, which is difficult for me because that's what I do. And to pull
right.
back from that
it's
was
going against what feels natural.
correct.
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult sometimes.
And how long did this piece take?
This one, I think we're looking at somewhere between 6 and 9 hours total.
Really? That's a reasonable amount of time
Yeah.
without being overbearing.
No, because sometimes it would be, because a lot of my backgrounds and how I start with making basically an organized mess, because I know where I want things, how they finish off is left to chance sometimes. And
I
then
love
it's a
that. I
matter
love that it's not so structured.
Thanks. And then from there I refine and choose where I want to refine it and where I want you to look.
So what I think is that you have to have really strong skills before you can break away from those skills.
Correct. Knowing those skills and knowing when enough is enough is, I think, one of the most difficult things for an artist. And learning the correct way to do things and then finding your own way,
Right,
I think is part of being an artist.
Well, I think it's what makes you an individual. I think it's what makes you so unique. You know, if you're always following the line, towing the line, you're never going to get to a place like this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the other pieces that you're
Sure.
going to be showing. We have some samples that we'll be putting up for us while we talk. The first one is your hand, the picture of your hand. So let's look at that one first. And what made you do that?
Several reasons.
Okay.
I have a very unique growth here on my finger from all the art I've done.
Okay. So your body has now morphed into being able to hold
Yes,
something.
how I hold things.
Yeah,
It's now
yeah.
a callus that several artists I know have them as well.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them have seen one as large as the one I have on my hand. But that was part of it. And the other part is the ring is actually very important to me, as well as a few of my friends.
Do you want to share the significance? You don't have to.
Well, the name of the piece that I've been toying with is actually Remembrance. There's a group of us that we all have the same ring. It was for a dear friend of ours that had died.
Okay.
And I always wanted to do something with it, and again, messing around with photos, it just happened to be the right one.
Yeah, yeah. It's so lifelike. It's lifelike, but it's not. I can't explain it. I mean, you know because you did it, but it's got that. It really
was
draws
also-
you to it.
That was also one of the first ones that was much more experimental. It was, I believe it was the first one that I started.
Okay.
A very different approach than I'm used to. So for me as well, it was a discovery journey.
And your eye immediately goes to that ring. That's
great.
just where you're just. Hey, look, it worked.
Yeah, sometimes they work.
Yeah, it just draws you right there. That's why I had to ask about it because it's just, to me, that's the first thing I see when I look at it.
Great.
Yeah, almost not so much the fingers. Your famous fingers is not what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Well, that's great because that was
That was the catalyst for doing it.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes that's what occurs just through the act of painting. You're not conscious of necessarily what you're doing.
Right, but unconsciously you were focusing on it, and it kind of came through that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an amazing piece.
Thank you.
So different. Like I said, they're all so different, and that's what makes it interesting. The next piece I want to talk about is the shark, because it is
thank
Shark
you.
Week, I think, or
Yes,
maybe
it was.
It was Shark Week
It was.
recently.
My
right?
daughter will tell you.
Yeah. See. Is your daughter an artist, by the way? Before we talk about-
Actually, yes, both of them are.
They are.
Yeah, and I purposely try not to teach them things because I want them to develop their own way. And
do they have their own sense of style?
they do. They very much do. My oldest, who's 10, just drew a mermaid the other day, and I was amazed at the anatomy. I'm like, I couldn't draw like this when I was 10.
Wow.
So it blows me away. And the other thing that I find is incredible, especially with the children, is that I hold my pencils and brushes very uniquely. Not many people do.
Okay.
And without teaching them, they both hold it the same way.
Do you think it's because they've seen you, or do you think it's just
genetic?
It's
Because
genetic.
it's a very, very odd way that I do things, and I never showed them, and that's how
But yet
they
they
do
do it the same way.
Yeah.
That's so
It's
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
love it.
Wow. So we're going to show with your girls at some point.
Yeah, hopefully.
So the shark piece, what's interesting to me is that the way we film it is this way, but yet you had it the other way when we first looked at it. Did it start as a shark?
Oh, yes.
That was your thinking?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My daughter, my older daughter, had found a great reference for a shark, and I dissected it to what I wanted it to be.
Okay. Something tells me it didn't look exactly like this
No,
one.
not at all. Not at all.
No.
And then again, the process helped create it, because if I had shown you the preliminaries on how it grew, no one would know that that was a shark until I started to.
And you go right to
pinpoint it.
paint, right? You don't do drawing first.
No, in this series I did no drawing at all.
So right to paint.
Correct. No drawing. And in my previous works, everything was very. I'm a firm believer in drawing is everything. You have to start there, and once you understand the drawing, it's more easier to you know.
It's a very clinical way to look at it.
Well, it's very important. You know, I agree that you have to learn the rules before you can break the rules.
Right. Right. But now, so now you did this, and you didn't draw first. So
No.
it.
At this point in my artistic career, I felt it was time to have a departure from what I've already known and what I've done so many times, and to trust my instincts on what I see in my mind's eye and where it's going to end up.
And so, what comes first? The background?
Usually what comes first with most of these pieces is some form of a flow, some form of a direction. In my vision, I like to have a way into a piece and a way out of a piece. Something that will lead you in and something that will let you
go
trail
when
off
you're
to
done.
another
Yeah.
one. I think I always start with the background. I like to start from the farthest point away and work my way to the foreground.
Gotcha. Okay, so you want my eye to go whoop and get right to where I need to be.
Correct. Correct.
See, all this art history stuff actually pays off, right? The last piece I want to talk about is the bird and
The gull.
the gull. And I had just come back from the beach, so that's just making me think of vacation is where I went when I looked at that. But I'm sure that's not what you intended when you painted it.
No, and that one again was very different for me. I had just I had found a reference of this seagull, and found it, the way that the light had affected its beak just attracted me to it.
Was it a photo?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what it was about it, but I had never seen the inside of it, of a beak like that. So that it made me, I have to do something with this. And I've always loved the beach. I grew up pretty much in the beach, so.
It's a
again,
happy place
the shark,
for you. Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of
yeah.
there's a whole vacation theme going on here.
Definitely is. There's definitely a water thing going on.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and the eye, I mean, it almost looks like the eye looks like a photograph almost. It's so clear that it looks like a photograph to me.
Thank you.
And I've seen some other things that you've done, and they've got a more of a, I want to say ethereal sort of feel to them. These are more concrete.
Correct. Correct. I think that was a conscious decision as well. And I think that also comes from the act of directly painting as well.
Okay.
I seem to have a bit of a clearer vision when I start to paint, whereas when I'm drawing, I spend sometimes too much time figuring things out instead of getting to what needs to be done.
Right.
And it seemed to be much more direct in this series, and I'm actually quite happy with the results from this as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, different, but also a little different from what I've seen you do before, which I kind of like.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about, where do we go from here? Are you going to continue to paint? Are you going to continue to...
I think I will always continue to paint. I think that's, my wife will tell you, when I don't paint, I'm not a happy person. So,
Is it how you relax?
Yes and no. It's how I relax, but it's also so ingrained in me and part of me that it's sometimes I have to paint rather than eat or sleep. It's more important to me.
They call it the rabbit hole, don't they? When you go down in that rabbit hole and you just have to get it done.
And it's always been that way. I've never broken from that, so I will definitely continue to paint.
And
As to what avenue it will go into?
yes,
I'm
that
not
you don't really
sure.
know the direction though, because it seems like you're
Yeah.
changing as it's changing. It's
Correct. There's a lot of change going on, but I still enjoy painting photorealistic as well. I love the challenge of it. And I also liked this series because it was a different challenge.
And do you feel like as you get older, and that was not a comment on your age at all, as you feel like as you get older, things look different, feel different, change? I mean, there's more experience going into it. There's different pieces. I think as we get older, we have different ways to look at things.
I agree that we do. We do have different ways of looking at things. And I think getting older does have a large part to do with that. I think that's also why I chose to not have sketches ahead of time and to just paint directly. I think my experience of painting brought me to that.
Right. Yeah.
So I agree. Age definitely had a factor in
You're not the same person you were when you first started.
correct.
Yeah.
You know, and it was also painting in more a photorealistic way was more proving to the masses that you
More
can do
lucrative.
this.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
these are more proving to myself that I can
I don't think
do
you need to
this.
prove to anybody anymore that you're an artist. I think you've gotten past that point that you
Yeah.
need to show what you can do. I think we all know that you're talented, so
Well, thank you.
that
Thank
doesn't.
you.
You don't need to worry about that anymore. So, how many pieces do you have working on right now?
Oh, could be between 10 and 15.
Okay, so how do you decide what day you're working on what? That always amazes me.
It amazes me too because there's many times that I'm fully aware I'm going to work on this painting, I'm going to work on this painting, and then I sit down and I'm like, I'm not working on this painting. I'm going to start a new one, and that takes over. I never really understand it. I just, I
Is it a mood
go
thing?
with it.
Is it a mood thing?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it is a mood thing. Sometimes there's a particular painting I'm working on right now that I curse at it every day because it's
Bane
just
of your
frustrating
existence,
me.
but yet it's there.
It will get done, but every day I go to work on it and it's just not ready. So a lot of it is
It's not ready, or you're not ready.
both, because they speak to you. Like that's why I think this one came out was actually pretty quick for how I paint. I just knew in my mind's eye what it needed to look like.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
an artist's brain is so different than any other brain. I really do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I see it in my girls as well.
It must be cool for you to watch them
It
now.
is.
The process
It's
of
amazing.
Yeah.
From the minute they were, what was it, 3 months old is when you can actually understand the first color you see is red. And I had my daughter in her carrier while I was painting, and I was using red, and you could watch her eyes open.
That's so
and
cool.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've watched and charted their progress.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Now, is your house filled with paintings? I mean, is it
Everywhere.
everywhere.
There's no more room. It's been
So, if I wanted to look at your work besides at the studio around the corner, do you show other places? Do you?
yes, I've had several shows in other galleries all throughout the Hudson Valley area, as well as New York City, as well as I've had work shown in Canada, Florida, California, all over.
Wow.
So wherever I have a show, I definitely try to.
Do you have a website that people can
I
look at
do.
you?
It's needles@monkeymojo.com.
Okay.
And my Instagram also has a lot of my art as well at Darth Needles.
What's it called?
At Darth Needles.
At Darth Needles. Okay.
Probably has the most recent.
And people can reach out to you if they see something they like. They can reach
Correct,
out to you.
correct. And I also do take commissions as well. I've done a lot of in the photorealistic realm of children's portraits and wedding portraits and all kinds
Wow,
of things.
you're all over the place.
I try to keep my toes in a little bit of everything.
Everything,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's great.
Thank you.
Well, I am very excited about your show coming
too,
up.
me
And
too.
I think the gallery is going to be transformed into this very cool space.
I certainly hope so, and thank you for the opportunity as well.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure. So once again, we have Needle Show coming up in October. It'll be open the entire month of October. The opening day is October 6th,
I
I
believe
think.
so.
I think it's October 6th. And then through the month, if you'd like to see the work, again, we'll put up your Instagram and your website addresses for anyone who wants to
Thank
reach
you.
out to you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm so looking forward to it. And please come join us at the studio for the event, and it'll be great. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you
and
very
for
much.
bringing all your beautiful work in and
It was my
talking with
pleasure.
us. Okay, terrific.